everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to So What, the Marketing Analytics and Insights live show. We have everybody on the show today. Welcome, Chris, John. How's it going?
Boo.
So close.
Not at
I'm
all.
glad to see things don't change when the new year does. This
not.
week, we are talking about how to use generative AI to analyze data. So this is something that Chris and I were talking about on the podcast earlier this week. If you want to catch that episode, you can go to trustinsights.ai/TI podcast. And we were talking about what you can and can't do with generative AI. And I think there's a misconception that you can give generative AI your data and it's going to analyze it in the traditional sense of do calculations and all that stuff. And that's not at all how that works. So what we wanted to do on the live stream today is give you a better understanding of what actually happens when you want to use generative AI to analyze your data. So Chris, where would you like to start today?
Let's start with what not to do. And
It's a long list.
It is a long list, but the big thing is this. Analytics inherently involves mathematics and computation. Computation and calculation are the two things that generative AI is horrible at, and that comes down to architecture. A language model is good at language. Math is not language. Math is symbology. It's a totally different way of working with things that look like letters, but are not. The way language models work is they predict the next likely thing based on all the data they've seen. So no matter who you're using, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Meta, they've all been trained on trillions and trillions of pages of information. When a language model tries to do math, what it's doing is it's looking at the history of everything it's seen for a set of numbers and saying, what numbers are similar to that I've seen in the past? This is not a recipe for success, right? You just can't do that. That's not how math works. And so the number one thing to not do is to ask a language model to do math. However, if you have a language model take the numbers in their final form, aka the final computations, like, hey, your site traffic has been up 40%, your email opens are down 5% or whatever, then it can craft language around those things because it's seen plenty of examples of like, oh, here's a report, and this report says 43% site traffic down is a bad thing, and we're going to panic and lose our stuff. So that is the first part, is you cannot and should not ask language models to do math. Just not going to work. Second thing is, this is true of all generative AI efforts, but especially when it comes to analytics. The more relevant data you bring to the party, the better it's going to perform. So if you just take a single screenshot out of Google Analytics, for example, with no other context, it'll come up with some answers, but it won't be a comprehensive look. Just like if you go to the doctor and say, I feel lightheaded, and you don't tell the doctor anything else, like, oh, by the way, I've got blood pressure issues, I've got a diet issue, I don't exercise, I eat 5 cheeseburgers a day. That one little piece of information is not the context of this. So when we're talking about analytics and using generative AI to analyze data, we have to provide as much relevant context as we can, so that, as we always say, generative AI is like the world's smartest, most forgetful intern. They got a PhD in everything, but they can remember nothing. So every time you address these things, you have to provide them as much information as you can.
I feel like the providing context part is going to be harder than the don't use generative AI to do math part. Because, you can use Excel or other tools to do the math part. But a lot of times, depending on your role or what you're being asked to do, you don't have the context. A lot of companies have reporting and analytics separate from marketing and sales and product and customer support and all those things. And so the person who has the data and is asked to do something with it has actually the least amount of context as to what happened, what was the intention of the campaign, how much money did you spend on it, who was the audience, what are the goals, like all of those things. So I just want to acknowledge that piece. Like, we could get into a whole, different episode about how to solve for those things, but in the context of this particular episode, I just want to acknowledge that I think that that's probably a big part of the problem is the person sometimes being asked to analyze the data has the least amount of context.
Exactly. So we can have the models provide a little bit of at least background context that can help. That can certainly patch some of those holes, but not all of it. So let's talk about how we would do this. And we should first start with an old familiar friend, the 5P framework. And in specific, we want to start with the user story. So today I figured we would do some, we're going to go very meta here, and we're going to analyze the performance of the So What live stream over the last year. But we need a user story. So Katie, as the CEO of Trust Insights, evaluating the live stream that we are doing right now, what would you want as our user story for analyzing live stream data?
Well, so I think I would actually go back to the 5Ps first, because the first piece of information I need to give you is the purpose, the goal. What is the question we're trying to answer? And so for those of you watching, I am making this up on the spot because Chris just sprung this on me. But the purpose of looking at live stream data would be, what is the performance of the shows? But that's too vague. That doesn't really tell you what that means. And so what I would probably like to know is, which of our shows has the most engagement? And you're going to say, well, what do you mean by engagement? And I'm going to say the highest number of views, or the most comments, or the most downloads or shares, or something along those lines, maybe a combination of all the things. But I guess sort of the bigger question is doing the live stream worth our time? John, what kind of goals would you add to that in terms of trying to understand the live stream data?
That's a good question. The any data we can get from YouTube would be interesting. I don't know. Yeah, as far as other stuff out there, it's tough. I mean, we have a few records in our CRM about where it's driven traffic and what's come out of that, but that's not enough to fuel a model. I mean, we definitely need bigger stuff than that. The other one, I guess, would be Ahrefs. There's a ton of stuff in there about how we're comparing to other pages. That might be enough data to play around with. But this is one of the bigger challenges that everybody faces in podcasting and in video. If kind of where do you get the source of truth that you're going to live by?
And I think that's, Chris and I were doing a webinar yesterday, and one of the big themes that came up was that sort of analysis paralysis of when you're presented with too many options, it's really hard to start to narrow it down. And the solution for that is to start to do user stories. So Chris, I think that to start with, the user story is, as the CEO, I want to understand the performance of the live stream so that we can make decisions about whether or not to keep doing it. Is that a detailed enough user story for you to get started?
I think so, because I think in a case like that, we're looking for anything, right? If we have 0 viewers, then again, no, it's not worth doing because there was nobody tuning in. So I think that's great. Let's do this. We're going to use the Trust Insights Rappel framework, which if you want a copy of it for free, no forms to fill out, go to trustinsights.ai/rappel. Let's start with building our prompts. So I'm going to switch over into my old handy text editor. Nothing super fancy. And the first part of the Rappel framework is the role. You are a YouTube marketing expert. You know YouTube analytics, live streams, live video analytics, YouTube Studio. Today, we're going to analyze some YouTube data. That's the action. Here's the user story we want to answer. As the CEO of Trust Insights, I want to analyze and understand the performance of the Trust Insights live stream. So what? So that I know whether it's worth doing or not. And now we start the priming process. Before we begin, what do you know about best practices for analyzing YouTube analytics? I'm going to take this, copy it. I'm going to be using Google's Gemini model today, Gemini 2. You can, and you're welcome to use pretty much any platform that you want. So ChatGPT, Claude, Meta, it doesn't matter as long as it's a foundation model that has state-of-the-art performance. DeepSeek, Llama 3.1, 4 or 5B, any of them are fine. So I'm going to just copy and paste those prompts right in, and we're going to let the model start to talk. One of the foundation principles of language models is, like YouTubers and sportscasters, they need to talk. They need to talk a lot. And sometimes they need to talk, just foam at the mouth for a while, just so that, now in the case of a sportscaster, it's because they fear dead air. In the case of language models, what we are doing is we are essentially invoking the piles of statistically relevant information to create essentially a much longer prompt, because every time you hit chat in these tools, everything that has happened prior to the next prompt becomes part of the next prompt. So all the 1,200 words that this thing just spit out is part of the next prompt. And the next prompt is, what are common mistakes made by less experienced professionals when it comes to analyzing YouTube data? You also want to, as it's spitting these things out, you do want to spend some time taking a look at what it said. We gave it a relatively slim prompt here, and so it's coming up with sort of the general best practices. You might want, if you were doing this, say in a something really important like finance or health or law, you might not even want to do this generated knowledge prompting. You might want to upload curated sources of known best practices. So these are the best practices for analyzing YouTube data, the common mistakes. Now we're going to add a third prompt in the priming process, which is, what are some expert tips and tricks for analyzing YouTube data that we have not talked about at all yet? This is throwing an error. What this is doing is this is pushing the model to say, what tokens have we not invoked and decoded into the chat yet? So what knowledge have we not brought into the chat yet? And so now we can see things like cohort analysis, funnel analysis, sentiment analysis, and so on. So these are all the expert tips and tricks. We now have completed the first part of the priming process. What we need to do next, we need to get the data in here for it to do an analysis. This is where we're going to go back to what we said at the very beginning of the show, which is, do not give these tools math tasks to do. They're bad at them. In fact, Rebecca was asking in the chat, what's the best platform for data analysis right now? Code Interpreter, GPT-4. She bought the $200 a month plan. You can't even give it files. The answer is, there is no tool that does math. Well, none. The workaround, if you have to do advanced data analysis, is to have these tools write Python code, which is a language task, to perform advanced data analysis. But as Katie said on the podcast this week, Excel's fine, right?
Excel is great. Excel is going to do, a lot of the calculations that you need. That, it's going to take a lot of time to get those calculations to put together in generative AI if you're doing the code. So I would definitely just rely on tools like Excel or Google Sheets to do all of those calculations first. The other thing, and we acknowledge this on the podcast too, is that a lot of the systems where you're getting the data, they've already done the calculations. And so rather than giving generative AI a spreadsheet, you're just giving them a screenshot of the dashboard that's being put up. And to acknowledge this, yes, my dog has decided to make an appearance. I apologize.
Absolutely no apologizing. We love it. You know that this was not pre-recorded.
This is not AI generated.
Not pre-recorded. This is the real deal. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to hit save as a PDF just in general, right? For let's do landscape just to make sure it all fits on the page. Good. Hit save. And that's going to be our first thing. Now, the second thing we're going to do is we're going to dig into the content. Actually, let's go to advanced mode. And I'm going to choose content. I'm going to choose title, and we're going to specify so what, which is the live stream, because we want to restrict this down. I'm going to the last year's worth of data. We've got views, watch count, subscribers, and going to hit good old print, right? And dump this out as a PDF.
And I want to acknowledge that was a fairly straightforward ask of the system, because we have very straightforward naming conventions. And also every live stream goes onto a playlist called So What. And so we've done a lot of that work up front to make sure that the data is organized.
And that is a critically important part of this process, is that you have to have good data governance. You can't do this kind of analysis if your data is kind of junk, right? So we've got those two things. The other thing we should probably do is we should probably go into Google Analytics and just look at where is traffic from YouTube coming from. So I'm going to start a new exploration. I'm going to choose the last year here, same time frame. Let's go ahead and create a segment, and we're going to create a new segment, and we're going to call it, this is going to be for sessions, because this is a marketing task, and marketing, generally speaking, sessions is the best scope metric for marketing, because you want to know what's brought somebody to your site that day. And we're going to choose our either a referrer, so let's do a page referrer, or a source medium. And this is, again, where good governance is really important. Good tagging is really important, because if you don't have good tagging, it's not going to go well for you. So we're going to use a regular expression, and we're going to use YouTube or YouTube, the link shortener version, which has the period in it. So you need to have both. So that's our page referrer, and we're going to have matches regex, same thing, either one of these. And we'll call the segment YouTube sessions. Interesting. I don't know that regex is functioning properly. Let's try just contains and just do YouTube for now. And contains YouTube. Atik says sometimes people go across sessions, so the same day, so users should also work. No, that is correct. That is correct. All right, so we have 601 users with just that very basic look there. So we're going to limit down our segment. Let's look at the landing pages. Landing page plus query string is our dimension. And our metric, and we're going to use good old sessions. Depending on the segment, to Atik's comment earlier, if you chose users, then your metric had also better be users. Do not mix up your scopes, otherwise it will go very badly for you. Let's go ahead and get our. Okay, so there's our landing pages, there's our YouTube sessions, and let's bump this out to 100. And so we can see these are the places when YouTube sends us traffic. We see the pages they land on. This is actually really good. So homepage is good. Our generative AI course also really good. This is not set. The newsletter, the contact form. So Katie, from a CEO's perspective, even before using generative AI, this is not a terrible answer.
I mean, and you went through all of that really, really quickly. And I feel like I already have some good information to work from. And I feel like that's because we started with a user story to define what it is that we're looking for. I will be right back because I have someone who is flipping out. I apologize. This is
no,
not
don't apologize. Go take care of her.
Yeah. I'll be back.
So what we're going to do here is we're going to dump this out, the PDF of this table out. Why PDF? Because especially in certain tools like ChatGPT, if you load a CSV file, they will try to write code. They'll try to do math, and then it just goes sideways. It gets stuck in Python loops. Nothing good happens. When you upload a PDF, that doesn't happen. Instead, it just does its thing. So we've now downloaded our Google Analytics data for the landing pages that are getting traffic from YouTube. And I went with landing page because I want to know what page did they land on? If you don't have the world's best data governance, or in some cases, when you have someone else on their YouTube channels recommending you don't have any capability to tag their traffic. And so we just want to know, where did they land from? By the way, this is the same technique that you use for measuring generative AI and whether it's sending you traffic. You don't know what the 20 paragraphs of conversation was prior to ChatGPT recommending your website, but you do know what page it landed on. So we've got our YouTube data now, right? And let's go back to our AI Studio here. And we're now going to say, okay, let's start doing some data analysis of, let's start doing some data analysis of the So What live stream. Some of our data is generalized, meaning it is for the overall YouTube channel, or is specific to the So What show. Additionally, it is possible that we receive traffic from YouTube from efforts that are not ours. Keep this in mind. Next, I'm going to provide you with the data. Summarize each file at a high level in terms of what you see. This step is critical. If you don't do this step, what happens is you're kind of assuming that the model has correctly read what is on screen. That's a real bad idea because these tools sometimes can be dumb as a bag of hammers. So I'm loading the 3 files that we just made. Let's see how many tokens. 636, 75, and 3,353. Good. And while we're waiting, Robert was saying there's an RTX voice if you have their hardware. Unfortunately, we all own Macs, so we don't have NVIDIA hardware. I suppose we could always get one of those $3,000 NVIDIA Project Digits workstations, but I'm pretty sure we're not going to spend that money not for a live stream. All right. Here are my high-level summaries of each file you provided based on my interpretation of the provided images. Right. So we have the channel analytics overview, the So What live stream analytics shows for at least 4 episodes, Google Analytics data, landing pages from YouTube. So we're now verifying, yes, you're looking at the right files. Like this is correct. So now what we want to do is we want to think through Katie's question. We're going to say, great. Based on our user story, let's see what we could do to answer the user story. At this point, we want to leverage the power of an AI model to help us out. And what we're going to say is this. First, explain the intent of my instructions and what I'm trying to do so that I know we're on the same page. Second, propose what knowledge you'll need from your own internal knowledge and the information I've provided to answer this question and answer the user story. Third, outline some candidate approaches to solving the problem. So what we're doing here is we're doing restatement of instructions. This is not just for vanity or summarization. This is actually to load up the context window by restating the instructions. This is a technique from a prompt engineering paper called RE2, which essentially says repeat and relearn. And every time you repeat an instruction in an AI chat, that it strengthens the power of that instruction. If you want to hear, a stupid human trick, you want your prompts to perform better, just copy and paste them twice. Second part is to restate the key knowledge it's going to need. And then the third part is to say, like, hey, with all this, propose some approaches, give me some ideas for how we're going to answer this user story. So what it came back with, let's take a look. Your instructions are driven by the user story. Therefore, your intent is to evaluate the overperformance of the so what live stream, determine the value and ROI of the live stream, make a data-driven decision about the future of the live stream. To answer the story, we're going to need these things from provided data, from my internal knowledge. So it's validating that it's read our stuff, good, and it also knows other stuff. Candidate approaches, the value-based assessment, define worth it. What does worth it mean? Analyze core live stream metrics, connect to website and traffic leads, calculate ROI if possible, qualitative assessment recommendations. The content optimization focus, identify top performing episodes, analyze content themes, audience retention, traffic analysis, and then recommendations, and then the comparative approach. Now, of those three approaches, Katie, it's your user story. Which user story do you think would probably be worth using?
I mean, is the answer all of them?
In this case, for today's show.
For today's show, okay. Then let's do content and optimization.
I love it. That was what I was going to suggest. Let's pursue number 2. First, based on this approach, identify the top performing 5 episodes and the bottom performing 5 episodes from the data I provided. So there's a reason that I'm asking for this very specific information. And the reason is we want to give the model data. Right? We want to give the model rich data about the top and bottom episodes. So it's saying top performing episodes. So what? How to use AI for social media marketing. So what? Generative AI advanced prompting techniques. So what? Saying Matoma Analytics. How to build an AI agent. Since we have data. You need to check your work there, buddy.
4. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to check your work. Let's take a look at. Oh, no, that is in fact what is in the PDF. The PDF lied. Well, it didn't lie. It doesn't have the correct information. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and go back to YouTube Studio. And let's go into full screen studio. Let's go to analytics. Let's go to content. We're going to go to advanced mode. Last 365 days, filter, title, and it contains so what? Apply. And let's download this. I'm going to download this as a CSV file, and we're going to play a little trick here. And the
well, you didn't explain what happened. You didn't explain what happened. You said that the PDF lied, but what happened?
What happened was the PDF is literally just a screenshot of the page on screen. So you can see there's only like 4 videos on screen. That's exactly what we got.
Got it. But what happens if you scroll down on it?
In the PDF, nothing. That is it.
Can you go back? But there were scroll bars on it.
There was. The scroll bars are literally embedded in it itself.
I see. That's really weird.
That is really weird and very annoying. So here's what we're going to do. I've downloaded the text files. Remember what we said. Do not load CSV files into AI. It is just a bad idea. It will try to do math. You do not want it doing math. It's just a bad idea. So what do? You change the extension to a text file. Let's go back into our language model and say, let's do this. I'm going to, and this is something that I love about Gemini that you cannot do with most other models. You can just delete the model's response, right? You don't have to go back and say, oh no, forget what I just said. Like, nope, delete. Here is a complete table of our, let's just verify this is also what episodes. Yes, good. So what episodes in the last 365 days in descending order by views. Use this to conduct the content analysis. So it's going to read through the table. Now, if we had more time, I would actually reformat this into the tabular format that AI likes best. which is markdown tables, but we don't have time for that today. So now it's saying, I understand. Here are your top 5 episodes. Here are your bottom 5 performing episodes. Preliminary observations. As we know before, the top performing episodes focus heavily on AI and its applications. The bottom performers cover a wide range of topics, including trends, change management, data mining, and Google Data Studio. It's difficult to draw definitive conclusions based solely on views, possible reasons in niche topics, lack of clear value, competition, algorithm factors. So that itself is kind of handy. Saying, oh, that didn't go as well as we would have wanted it to. However, go ahead, Katie.
I have so many questions, so please just keep going.
No.
No, because you might answer the questions, because I feel like, yeah, this is good to know, but doesn't really tell me what I need to know yet. It says the bottom 5, consumer trends, data mining, what's a trend, change management and digital transformation. That breaks my heart. Dark data mining and getting started with Google Data Studio. Yeah. I mean, it gives some preliminary observations, but doesn't really tell me what to do.
Okay. So I like that it helped us isolate and figure out what are those general pages. Now, here's the problem. A YouTube title is not super helpful, right? That's like the tiniest possible snippet of text that you could offer. What would be helpful is, what if we had like the shows themselves? Wouldn't it be useful if we had those shows? So the good news is we do. And here's how you would approach this. There is a utility, it's one of my favorites in the world, called YTDLP. YTDLP is a command line application. One of the things that it does incredibly well is it's designed to download YouTube data or YouTube stuff in general. So it can download your videos, it can download just the audio, and critically, it can download the captions files. So what you would do is you would download this in software, install it, which requires a little bit of technical lifting. And then you say, YTDLP, here's my YouTube channel. Give me my captions files. And it will spit out a big old folder of all of your captions files. So as an example of where we want to go with this, we can say, well, generative AI just told us which of our episodes are the top and bottom. So let's go take a look here. How to use AI for social media marketing, right? That's what we're looking at here. So let's scroll down. So what? How to use, where's my so what files? Oh goodness, there's a lot in here. We've done a lot of shows. Let's take all of our so what files here, and I need to sew them up because they're overwhelmingly large.
So while he does that, John,
yes,
I know we've often talked about, like, when we do these kinds of examples of how to use generative AI to do certain things, with the Marketing Over Coffee podcast, you could then also have a similar set of files with all of the transcripts from all of the recordings. Is this the kind of analysis that you would do, or do you feel like you have the right kind of a data available already to tell you what's working and what isn't working with the Marketing Over Coffee podcast?
Yeah, well, that's just because Marketing Over Coffee is underfunded as far as labor, right? Like, I know there are like 3 programs I know I could do that would work. So there's no point, and I don't have time to do those. So there's no point in me digging further to see like where the other opportunities are. But yeah, this is great. Well, and since he's grinding it, I do have to tell the story of like the very first time. I mean, I don't know, it must be close to 2 years ago now. The first time we did just this exact activity, Chris was like, hey, this can do some stuff. I was like, I'm going to have it run some analysis for me. And I threw a bunch of files at it and, wanted it to kind of cut and slice and dice them for me. And he was just like, yeah, no, that's not what this does. And at that point, I was like, all right, I'm going to leave it to Chris.
Well, and I feel like, one of the reasons why we turn to tools like generative AI is because the data out of the box in the systems, it's just not it doesn't tell you enough of what you need to know. It tells you kind of like this went up, this went down, if you're lucky. Sometimes it doesn't even do that. So I feel like this is sort of that next level, sort of almost the qualitative part of the analysis that is arguably, I would say, a bit harder because it's not just looking at numbers. Now you're looking at the actual content itself and trying to make decisions. And that's not something that a lot of the systems where our data is currently housed does really well.
Yeah, it's always a matter of, just questions begat more questions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's add another question. And the question is this. Here is the Trust Insights ideal customer profile, which Katie, you built, which is super extensive. It tells exactly who our customer is. I'm going to say, take this analysis of our YouTube stuff and revise the analysis through the lens of our ICP. What in these top and bottom performing shows would they find value in? Because if we know that, then we know it'll help explain the content a little bit better. And while it's chugging away about that, Rebecca has a follow-up question. Are there similar data privacy concerns with Gemini versus OpenAI if it's within the Google infrastructure? Notebook LM promises privacy and security. Gemini in AI Studio, if you are a paid developer with AI Studio, your data is not used to train models. If you are using the free version, your data is being used to train models. If you are concerned about that, use it through the API. And you will have to pay for it. And we do get a bill from Google, although it's a very, very small bill. Notebook LM is a great resource for this, particularly if you are analyzing a lot of transcripts, because you can dump hundreds of megabytes of text data into Notebook LM and have it do that analysis. And I think that would be a phenomenal, maybe that's a follow-up episode sometime on actually, we probably need to do like an intro to Notebook LM live stream, because there's so much you can do with it that we just don't have time within the context of another episode. So
I'm glad that you put the ICP in here, because that was going to be one of my questions when you did the initial analysis or rather an observation, is that it's great that we collectively look at the data, but we're not the customer. So we're always going to have a bias in terms of the things that we did and didn't do. So like one of my first reactions was, oh, that's so disappointing that change management didn't rank as high. I personally feel like it should rank higher. It doesn't matter what I think. I want to know what the customer thinks. So I'm so glad that this is now part of the analysis.
And now for a commercial plug. If you would like your own ICP, contact Trust Insights. We'll happily build you one. All right. So if we look at our YouTube data through the lens of the ICP, the top 5 performing episodes, so what? ICP alignment strong. This aligns well with the ICP's desire for AI-driven insights and operational efficiency. Why it likely resonated, and so on and so forth. So what on Matomo? Strong. Why it resonated? Solution to a common challenge. Generative AI advanced prompting strong. Why it resonated? Valuable, useful knowledge. How to build an AI agent? Moderate to strong. It's a more advanced topic. So the how-to format is still good. So what, leveraging your data for ICP storytelling, the ICP's need for data-driven storytelling. Yeah, and then the bottom episodes, ICP alignment, weak. While the ICP is interested in data analytics, this topic might be too abstract and theoretical. It lacks a clear connection to immediate business goals or pain points. This was all produced before the ICP was provided, which means that this show may not be with what the ICP had in mind. Determining what's a trend, weak. Topics too basic for the ICP, who already has a good understanding of trend analysis. Change management, moderate. So that's not weak. In this case, it is moderate, saying digital transformations, relevant change management might not be the primary focus for the ICP. The title lacks a strong hook and doesn't clearly communicate the value proposition for marketers. Might be perceived as too high level or corporate.
That's fair.
Dark data mining, too technical. Getting started with Data Studio, it's a very specific tool. Getting started suggests a beginner level focus, which might not appeal to more experienced marketers. So this analysis now is super helpful.
That tells me so much more than the initial analysis, because this is where we get stuck with reporting and analytics is, okay, we can look at the numbers like this was low performing. Okay, so what? What do we actually do about that? What does that mean, low performing? Why was it low performing? Now that we've layered in the ideal customer profile, we can find out why it was low performing, but also then what to do about it to make it more attractive to our audience. Like that to me is it's like the secret sauce that shouldn't be secret. It should always be through the lens of your audience and your customers. And for some reason, that is so hard for people to wrap their heads around. Like, like, you guys don't care what I think about it. I'm not the customer. I'm going to take John's opinion with a grain of salt because he's not the customer. Chris, I'm definitely not listening to you. You're not the customer. But because the three of us have such differing opinions on what we think is going to resonate, the easiest way to answer that question is to actually talk to the customer.
Exactly. So now I'm doing a final prompt in the series saying, great, based on what we've done so far, let's build a plan for future live streams, a checklist for ideating future shows that mesh well with our specific capabilities and talents, but also appealing to the ICP. Now, you don't just want to say that based on the YouTube content. I have provided a knowledge block for Trust Insights. This is several pages of who we are, what we do, all that stuff, which, by the way, you should have written out. And I'm going to say now, based on this information, 1, explain back the intent of my instructions clearly. 2, choose the knowledge from what we've discussed so far and your own knowledge to solve this question. 3, explain your choices and approach for solving this question. 4, solve the question and produce the results in full. What are we doing here? This is chain of thought. This is structured chain of thought as a prompt engineering technique where we're saying, if you've ever done public speaking, you've heard the term, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them, which is a terrible public speaking framework. But it's a great prompt framework for generative AI. Tell me what I told you, and tell me what you're going to do. Tell me as though you're doing it. Tell me what you did and why, and then do it. And that approach is going to generate much better results than just saying, write the plan. Why? Because it gives the model essentially a chance to do a trial run of its ideas. In the same way that you or I, we write a rough draft first, and then we do a final draft. So the intent, you want to create a checklist for ideating future So What live stream episodes that appeals to the Trust Insights ideal customer profile, aligns with our capabilities, is feasible and engaging. The topic should be something that you, Chris, and John can discuss with authority and enthusiasm.
It's got to have that enthusiasm, John Wall.
I was the authority that was impressive. It was like, respect my authority.
We'll create a checklist that combines the elements of a brainstorming guide and a filter. Each point in the checklist will serve as an idea generator, relevance filter, and an engagement check. So, topic, relevance, and value, our strengths, engagement and format, SEO and promotion, post-production. Example of the checklist. Say you're doing unlock the power of data storytelling with generative AI. Now, what do we do with this checklist? Katie, what does this checklist look like to you?
It looks like a process. It looks like a set of requirements. It looks like something that as we are coming up with topics for future live streams, we should be going back to and gut checking against it. It almost kind of looks like the live stream version of the ICP.
It also looks an awful lot like system instructions. Right? These are system instructions for an AI to use. So watch what happens. We're going to take just that checklist. I'm going to take this thing. I'm going to rename this live stream system instructions. Evaluate. The user will provide a live stream idea. You will evaluate the idea according to this checklist. And now,
which is great because I have one for you.
Let's take off the example because I don't want the example here. What do I want in here instead? I want the Trust Insights About Us profile, and I want the Trust Insights ICP because those two things make this work. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reuse our RE2 prompt format, and I'm going to repeat the prompt again at the bottom. This whole thing gets copied into the system instructions. And now I could put this in a regular Google Gem. I could put it in Claude. I could put it in ChatGPT. It's pretty robust. It's about 3,000 words long, or 3,000 characters long. No, words, 3,000 words long. So now, Katie, here's our live stream idea. Evaluate it according to the system instructions. What's the idea, Katie?
So what? Introduction to Notebook LM. And I would like this to be a gem, please, and thank you.
Let's see. Live stream, topic and relevance. Notebook LM as a tool potentially helps aggregate information, which indirectly addresses the ICP pain point of data aggregation, although it's not as directly as data analytics platforms. Value proposition. So what? Introduction to Notebook LM is intriguing, but doesn't fully communicate the value. The so what ties to the Trust Insights brand, but introduction to Notebook LM might be too niche if the audience isn't familiar with the tool. Alignment with Trust Insights strengths and expertise, engagement and format, SEO and promotion, post-production. So based on your evaluation, give me 3 to 5 other candidate titles that would resonate better with our ICP on the topic of Notebook LM.
So while that's generating, what I'm actually a little surprised by, Chris, is that this live stream evaluation doesn't have a scoring rubric.
And we absolutely could make one. We could absolutely make one. However, having answer open-ended questions for brainstorming is not a bad thing. And that's kind of what it did, is was going through the open-ended stuff. But yes, 100%. And convert it into scoring rubric would take literally 2 or 3 minutes. But here's some ideas. Notebook LM, organizing your marketing intel with Google's AI. From chaos to clarity, how Notebook LM transforms your marketing and research. Unlock the power of AI for content strategy. A deep dive into Notebook LM. Notebook LM, your AI-powered research assistant for better marketing decisions. And streamline your workflow, mastering Google's Notebook LM for marketing. I kind of like that last one.
I like the last one. I like number 4. The other ones feel very salesy.
Mm-hmm.
Which is probably the way we should go. But I like number 4 and number 5.
So as we wind down here, what we've done today is we've taken data, right? And we've taken the qualitative data from transcripts and from knowledge blocks and from our ideal customer profile, bonded it with our quantitative data to help us prioritize what episodes should we look at for the qualitative analysis, and then converted all of that into findings, checklists, and ultimately an application in AI in 48 minutes that we can now use to not only do the analysis and know what happened, but now say, well, what should we do differently? Because one of the things that we say all the time in all of our talks on the topic is analysis without action is distraction, right? If you're just making slides to make slides and you're not doing anything differently, you're not accomplishing anything. You're just wasting your time. Generative AI gives us the ability to convert analysis into action,
which is so important, because that's where a lot of these reports miss the mark. It's like, here's what happened. Okay, great. I can't change it. What the heck do you want me to do? And that's sort of, John, what I was talking with you about is these platforms that the data lives in for like our live streams and our podcasts. That's all it is. It just tells you what happened. And then you screenshot that, you put it into a deck, and you ship it off to your stakeholder. And they're like, what the heck do I do with it? Like, this is not helpful.
Now imagine you gave your stakeholder, hey, here's a Google Gem. Every time you do a content plan, now just use this. Right? How much more valuable would that be to any stakeholder? How much more value would that be for your agency or your firm or your consulting practice to say, not only do we do the analysis for you, we will give you the tools that you need to do better.
Oh, I 100% plan on using this new gem that you're going to put together every week as we do the live stream. And we should likely also do one for the podcast.
Yep, exactly. Any final parting thoughts or words?
We need to get Chris a wizard's hat for him making gems in the background. That's the best phrase for saving it. You're not saving a document or a file. No, this is a
It's a
gem.
gem.
Oh my goodness.
Get some healing crystals.
Ugh.
All right.
That note.
On that note, I think we're done.
On that note, thanks for tuning in, folks. We will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching today. Be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you're watching it. For more resources and to learn more, check out the Trust Insights podcast at trustinsights.ai/TI podcast and a weekly email newsletter at trustinsights.ai/newsletter. Got questions about what you saw in today's episode? Join our free Analytics for Marketers Slack group at trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. See you next time.